Welcome to another fantastic episode of the Taylor Green Media Podcast. You're probably listening to this. Maybe you're watching it on YouTube. Maybe a friend gave it to you. Who knows how you found it? I'm just glad you're here. I am your host, Mike Green, and today we're going to talk about something that is actually a major problem, not just in business, but also a problem in relationships, a problem in your own personal self-worth, and it's a problem in how you perceive and how you present yourself to others. And that is our definition, our life that we have defined by the stories we tell about ourselves. Now, your story is different than my story. Your raising up was different than my raising up. The environment you lived in, maybe the culture you grew up in, or the town, or the way you were treated, or whatever. We all have a story. We all have a definition of who we are, what we can provide, and how we see ourselves today. However, it's really, really challenging to take and separate those stories from who we actually are. What happens is we create a box, and that box is filled with our stories that we tell about ourselves. The stories about how we deal with other people, how we sell to people, full with stories of how we communicate with our spouse, how we treat our children, how we treat our parents, how we treat our neighbors, our church friends. It's filled with those stories. And those stories really define us, or we allow it to define us in almost every single action we make. So when we have an interaction with somebody, we go back to our box of stories and say, okay, how should I respond to this person? When we're in a situation of conflict or collision, we go back to the box and say, okay, how am I supposed to respond to this thing? When we're lying in bed at night and we have an idea or a thought or something and we think through ourselves, we go back to that box of stories and say, am I capable of doing this? Am I worthy of doing this? Am I going to have enough strength, good ideas, enough money, all those things? And we go back to that box of stories and we start pulling those stories. We're like, okay, what's the answer for this thing? It's an incredibly empowering experience when we allow ourselves to say, I am not the box. I am not this set of stories any longer. I'm going to allow myself to not be defined by those stories. I'm going to allow myself to open up the box and see what else goes in it and see what goes out. Now, we could get really personal. I could get really personal with you. I could get really personal with me. And we can talk about times where we were done wrong, or we were abused in some way, or we did something to somebody else that we wish we could take back. We could go through those stories. The truth is, those stories are in the past. I have a feeling that there's somebody watching this right now that as I'm talking about stories and talking about the reasons that they are how they are, there's something, some experience that has come to their mind. There is, isn't there? There's something that's come to your mind that you're saying, yes, that is my story. That is who I am. I'm rich, I'm poor, I'm fat, I'm skinny, I'm successful, I'm unsuccessful, I'm helpful, I'm kind, I'm mean, I'm angry. You have all of these things about yourself. Let them go. Let those stories be free from you. Now, I know it's hard to do. And quite honestly, it takes years of work to get rid of those stories. But the truth is, and I'm speaking from personal experience, I'll be 44 here in a couple of months, and it's taken me a long time, many years, working through my own personal stories and separating myself from the stories and the victimhood that it creates to the person that I know that I am. Again, going back to those God-given gifts, talents, skills, and power that were given to me the day that I was born, and separating them from the stories that the world tells me that I am, and that I have bought and sold hook, line, and sinker about myself. As I've started to separate those things, I'm able to start seeing what's possible. I'm able to start seeing a whole new capacity. I'm able to start see what I truly can be for myself. Here's step one. Step one is to recognize that you have a box of stories. Step two is to start writing what those stories are. Actually taking them from your brain, through your little hand there, writing down on a piece of paper, what are those stories? What do you believe about yourself? That's as far as you need to go at this point. Recognition, acknowledgement, documentation of those stories. Just getting them out will get you on the path where all things might be possible. I know this is a hold hands and sing kumbaya type of podcast, but the reality is, if you open that box, so much more will be available to you in your capacity to be successful in business, in your relationships, in life. Join us at TaylorGreenMedia.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.